What's a stupid myth that's still floating around? You have to wait 24/48 hours before filing a missing person report. That was actually the law until more recently because so many people were getting hurt while the cops were telling folks not to bother them. That's why so many teenagers disappear in the 70s 90s cause Vops just said everyone ran away. Or are you just another victim of this myth? Because what you're saying doesn't really make sense. This isn't really a myth depending on how lazy the cops are. A friend of mine went missing in Atlanta, hadn't heard from her in over 24 hours. Literally every single precinct in Atlanta told us we had to wait a full 48 hours before filing a missing person report because she was an adult. That's not a thing anymore. A lot of police departments will tell you this despite it not being the law. Seriously, it comes up all the time in true crime podcasts. If you ever find yourself in that situation, you need to demand the police do something right then. They are otherwise very likely to tell you to wait anywhere from 48 HRS to a week. But ma'am, your toddler has only been missing for 5 hours. You can be promoted into a lower net income because of tax brackets. This is very different from the welfare cliff, which is very real. It's amazing how few people understand how progressive taxation works. Ask them if they are willing to take a pay cut to save on taxes, and suddenly they get it. I think some people legitimately have a difficult time understanding the concept, like maybe no one has given them an explanation where they use an example case. But I agree, the amount of people who don't understand it or do and oppose it usually because they think they are in a higher tax bracket in the future and don't want to pay taxes on that day. Lamau, that stick is hilarious. I've seen idiots turn down promotions/raises because they thought they would lose money. I guess it's good I had to take an economics class. Well, to be fair, it is almost never explained to the masses. I didn't learn this till I was in my 30s. I think a lot of it is people that just don't get math in general, so they think it works essentially like magic. I had a coworker that I explained it to after they denied a raise. Their response was, well, I don't want to pay the government more money. Right. Just take the L and move on, my guy. Few politicians understand that tax is tax and many people just want theirs reduced already. If I understand correctly, some states have a flat tax rate that increases after a certain threshold plus a percentage of anything over another threshold. Oregon, for example, if you make 125 you pay $4,118 plus 8.75% of whatever you make above 50. If you exceed 125 your flat rate jumps to $10,681 plus a percentage of whatever is above 125. So in a state with a flat tax, that one extra dollar that flips your bracket costs you like 6 skin taxes. Theoretically, it might happen if you become ineligible for certain deductions or trigger the ATM. MSG is bad for you. Most people believe it, and those people probably have it at least once a week without knowing. Much better for you than salt. I used to get that call all the time when I worked at Subway back in high school. Any MSG in your food? Listen, Karen, I dig what that is. If you're worried about what's in your food, maybe don't go to a fast food establishment, lol. Facts. Anti-Chinese propaganda. I'll give you another secret. It's still salt. But yeah, MSG has a bad rap. Umami powder is just MSG. Even Anthony Bourdain said that the whole myth was based on racism. That's just incredibly toxic though. Knicks and Rangers fans everywhere. Stir-fry vegetables with loads of MSG are the only way to go. Thank you. I was waiting for the Madison Square Garden joke. Thank you for that. Real salt is good for you. My umami is Vegemite in disguise. My wife gets ill to the point of nausea every time she eats food with MSG in it. She actually has an allergic reaction. So it may not necessarily be unhealthy for the majority of people. Not everyone is good with it. It'll take like 7 years to digest gum if you swallow it. I don't know where it even came from. Probably someone who wanted to discourage kids from chewing gum. My biology teacher told us that because he thought chewing gum was gross and didn't want us bringing it to his class. Moms that didn't want their kids to swallow gum, it probably would take 7 years to digest it. Good thing you'll stick it out in 24 minutes, 28 hours. I swallow gum to this day. Sometimes it just tastes a little too good and my troglodyte brain tells me I must consume. It only takes 3 licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. Pretty sure that was confirmed on Mythbusters. Though, I heard that the original gist was that chewing gum is so bad for you that stomach acids would take 7 years to break it down. Several games of telephone later, we get the myth. It never made sense to me. If it's bad to swallow, why are you chewing it? There's a high probability that if a fact has the number 7 in it, it's fake. The fifth dentist. Cracking your knuckles will cause arthritis. I can't even fathom the amount of times I've cracked my knuckles. Good one. Do it one more time and see what happens. Gonna be honest, I don't exactly know what arthritis is, but people told me this, so I continued cracking my knuckles, and now something is definitely wrong with my fingers. Lonely. This is a good lie because I don't want to hear someone crack all their knuckles one by one every 5 minutes. Arthritis is mostly inflammation of the joints / when your nervous system attacks them for no reason from what I know. It causes pain and stiffness. My mother had it so bad that it literally turned her wrist to bone. It kinda runs in my family, so lucky me. I cracked my fingers so much that one day my fingers swole up and I couldn't bend it. I talked to my primary doctor about it and it seems I agitated a tendon or nerve or something. Can't really remember. Creating a Facebook status that says I do not give Facebook permission to use my photos or likeness or anything of that ilk. I loved this trend because I got to identify my most gullible acquaintances. I swear I explain this to a friend or relative like twice a year. Also, that some magic posting will change Facebook's algorithm. PSA to all the southern middle-aged white women on Facebook. And not to call out all conservatives, but it is only conservative friends/family that falls for that stick for me. Oh, the one about the USA spending millions designing a pen for space, and the Russians just using a pencil. Having pencil shavings floating around up there would cause chaos. Physically using a pencil spews graphite all around, that's the problem. But the pen writes upside down. And do they make pencils that catch their own graphite dust as you write? No. Then the problem still exists. If only there were pencil sharpeners designed to contain the shavings. Just take the pen. I always thought that was just a joke about the US callously allocating their budget rather than an actual myth. A joke that became a myth, I think. I remember my year 9 science teacher telling me it as a matter of fact. Add the crayon? There are, but the USSR spent millions designing it, so at the end of the day it was a wash. The Americans spent billions coming up with that. The Russians just used a knife to sharpen the pencil while they were on a spacewalk. Vaccines cause autism. Not only is that study fake, it had multiple different profit motives, was full of literal lies, and contained multiple cases of life-threatening child abuse, while even saying it didn't claim anything. Worst study ever. Also believe the doctor who did the study got his medical license revoked. And most of the other doctors who also worked on the study said that they were wrong. To add, the original study wasn't even about vaccines themselves, but about a preservative known as thimerosal, which is a chemical compound containing mercury. Sounds way scarier than it is. It was used in tiny quantities, and poisoning yourself with it would be prohibitively expensive. Even though Wakefield's study on it was heavily flawed, thimerosal was phased out as a preservative in vaccines and other injected pharmaceuticals for children, at least in the EU. This story is a great example of how at each step in communication, vital information may be lost or deliberately omitted and lead to misinformation. Original study claims some compound used in vaccines for children has a suspected link to children exposed to it developing autism-like symptoms. But some media picks up and spreads something in vaccines may cause autism in children. What the reader remembers and tells forth to a friend, vaccines cause autism in children. What this friend remembers and tells forth, vaccines cause autism. Also, the sample size was 12. I was born in a country where few people were vaccinated until like 1960 or so. My mom had a cousin who was autistic and had never been vaccinated. It was revoked and he was shamed quite a bit. I heard, though, he still tries to push this nonsense. There's a great video that debunks the study behind this. Bit of crass humor thrown in, but still very informative. A lot of people now say that if a non-vaccinated kid gets autism, it's because their parents were vaccinated, person female. I'm so glad I bullied my sister out of believing this. She was pregnant with her first kid and started talking about vaccines causing autism like 10 years ago. I just kept sending her memes about kids dying because they didn't get vaccinated. It did the trick. This deserves more upvotes. The fallout from the study that perpetuated this is insane. Thanks for sharing. I will check it out. Thumbs. Like not having measles. Thanks. Upside. Somebody was vaccinated and is quite defensive. That the hymen is a virginity detector. Hymens do not work that way. They often stretch rather than break during sex. Lots of adult women who have had a lot of sex still have intact hymens, and the hymen can also break from non-sexual activities like riding a bike or a horse, during exercise, using a tampon or menstrual cup. I remember watching a TED talk about this a while back. Someone did a survey of some girls/young women that were literally pregnant, and a decent number still had it intact. This could be news for religious people. Also, some people are born without hymens, a very small amount, but still some, and that it does not fully cover the vaginal opening. Some barely do. They come in so many different shapes and sizes and thickness too. TMI alert. I had an extra thick hymen and once went to the emergency room because it ate a tampon. Actually didn't even break when I lost my virginity. Here's a weird one for you. Guess what plastic surgery procedure is very popular in Japan? Women getting their hymens rebuilt. Talk about a born-again virgin, eh? Incidentally, many of the patients are typically husband hunting after a divorced/getting widowed, or they have found husband/too, and are engaged. Some are probably also first-time brides, but broke the things through non-sexual activities, but wanted to be intact for their wedding night. Thank you. I'm tired of one of the arguments against the hymen myth being that, oh, they can break from other things. Oh my god, it does not cover the entire hole, or you'd have to have surgery. We're still perpetuating the myth of it breaking with those examples. I think the words break and intact is where the confusion comes in and perpetuates the myth. It makes it seem that the hymen is a barrier completely covering the vaginal opening, when in fact, it is a thin film surrounding the opening. If there wasn't an opening there already, it'd be impossible to menstruate. One would also need to have surgery to make an opening if they had a hymen that completely covered their vaginal opening. It's called imperforate hymen and is a medical problem. They cut the hymen to allow for menstrual flow. I was born without a hymen AMA. Had a friend that had to have her surgically removed.